that we've got here in college football. And today was kind of a wake up call for those college football fans. They're kind of like, well, is this real or is this fake? Well, um, we had a lot of good action today compared to certainly the first few weeks, but I think it was slightly better than last week. Last week we had the great win for Iowa State. We had a few other notable games, including TCU's upset win over Texas. But this week, it was really the focus on the SEC, and it was a pretty good day for the SEC in terms of solid matchups. We did have an absolute dud between Kentucky and Mississippi State, which is kind of bad for Mississippi State and certainly bad for LSU. LSU really the biggest loser of the day, losing to Missouri, and then having a team that beat them fall to 1-2. And that's just the reality of this season is not the SEC is not going to get more than two teams into the playoff. And you got to accept that is that your conference is only really as good as your best few teams. And the SEC, I'd say right now, it has to be the matchup we're seeing next week between Georgia and Alabama. That is really what's holding up this conference right now. And of course, you have the tier two teams, which I'd say are Florida and certainly, I think A&M is definitely a tier two team after what we saw today. But I think they're kind of a lower than Florida. They're kind of on the same level. The Tennessee, I'd say, is there. LSU certainly not there anymore. I don't know where Ole Miss stands at this point. The SEC is a really crazy conference right now. All right, let's move on to our three winners of the day. My three winners, personally, Missouri, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. I don't know where you guys would put these three teams, or which three teams you'd select, but I think Missouri, you have to put them up there. Certainly getting their first win of the season, especially in the fashion that it happened. The game got moved to Columbia, and it's not like Missouri just wasted the opportunity to have a home game against LSU. They took advantage. They prepared. They wanted to prove that yes, home field advantage does matter in the SEC, and I'm very impressed in what Missouri was able to do today. And I hope we get more next week from this Missouri squad. I think they'll be back in the future. Other action today we had K-State beat TCU. Certainly that game wasn't quite. It was a little better than I thought it was going to be. Iowa State winning in the Big 12. We have a lot that happened today. In college football. Okay, just give me a second here. Alrighty, guys. So South Carolina got their first win against Vanderbilt today. That's not winner worthy. Duke winning against Syracuse. Georgia beat Tennessee. Iowa State over Texas Tech. Like, really good day. I mean, we had an overtime game against Boston College against Pittsburgh. We had Alabama score 63-9 against Ole Miss, but yet Alabama only won by like 15. Clemson took care of business. Kentucky won. Florida State won. And surely the game that we should be talking about are those two early games. A&M beating Florida, close, and then Oklahoma's winning 4 overtimes. Those were really the two headlining games that I thought Well, they're not the marquee matchups in terms of the rankings after losses last week for Oklahoma and Texas. But I think the game itself, independently, I think this year I kind of have pushed the rankings out. I haven't really thought about the rankings because we really aren't in a normal college football year. In a normal year, you'd have 5 conferences really vying for those top 10 spots. And this year, it's kind of different. I think the rankings will kind of be irrelevant until we get to those final weeks of the season when we have the committee looking at it. Because when you have teams playing different amounts of games, it's not really going to be a fair ranking. Because the Big 12 has played 4 games and the SEC has played 3 games. So theoretically, every Big 12 team could have another half loss. Now, granted, Big 12 played their extra game was against a non-conference, and by the end of the year, the SEC will have played the same number of teams as the Big 12, but it will be against conference opponents. So the average win percentage of an SEC team will be 500. Will be exactly 1 win for every loss for the SEC. So it's possible that every SEC team goes 5-5. That's possible. Doesn't mean the SEC is bad. It just means that there really isn't a true team above the rest, that's not going to happen. Let's be honest, Vanderbilt's going to go at best 1 win for Vanderbilt this year. And certainly Alabama is going to win most of their games. They're not playing the gauntlet. They're not playing every team from the SEC East. That's a problem. They got Georgia, they got Tennessee, they avoid Florida. I think they're going to be fine. They already played Missouri. Was the other crossover game for Alabama. Okay, that Red River game. Let's just talk for a second about this one. Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma was a favorite going into this game. And really throughout this game, Rattler looked so bad at so many points. And I just could not watch the game. It was kind of unwatchable for segments. In other times, I was like, well, Rattler, he's all right. I think this is just a dysfunctional conference right now. The only team that I haven't really seen dysfunction in is certainly K-State and Iowa State. Now, part of the lack of dysfunction is probably that they got shocked when they got beat by the teams from the Sun Belt. Iowa State losing to Louisiana, Lafayette, and K-State. I don't remember who they lost to. It was Arkansas State. K-State lost to. In that the initial that was week 2 technically of the season, but week 1 for them. And I think it was a big wake up call. Now for these other teams, Texas, Oklahoma, both now with 2 conference losses. And you think about getting to a Big 12 championship. They are now 2 full conference games behind K-State, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State. Those 3 teams are in the lead for the Big 12 championship by 2 games over the frontrunners of Oklahoma and Texas now. This is going to be a disaster for the Big 12 when it comes to the championship weekend. They're not going to have their big names. I think this would probably be the lowest rated Big 12 championship in a couple of years. Alrighty, guys. Make sure I'm getting this right. The standings as it stands in conference play. It is Oklahoma State at 2-0, K-State, Iowa State at 3-0 in conference play. Now, the teams at the bottom, of the barrel. Kansas and Texas Tech have yet to win a conference game. And then you've got teams in the middle: TCU, Oklahoma, Texas, Baylor, West Virginia, which have won a game and lost either a game or two. And this is going to be a tough ride for the finish. And we see the gauntlet that Oklahoma State has in November. They're going to get pretty much every team that you can possibly face within a month. And it's going to be a tough ride. We're not going to see a pretty finish. So Oklahoma State, they start their real gauntlet this week at Bigler. Then they get Iowa State at home. Then they are hosting Texas. Then they're at K-State. Then they're at Oklahoma. Now, if they can get out of that, they're going to be Big 12 champions, at least in the regular season. No, they'll be in the championship game. Now, of course, all I have to do is finish second to get into the championship game. But of course, if they're going to go to the college football playoff, they're going to have to run the table, most likely. A one-loss at Oklahoma State, depends who they lose to. I mean, if you lose to Iowa State in a close finish, maybe. Lose to K-State close finish, maybe. But you just have to be dominant in the rest of your games, otherwise you're going to be left out. Any other topics we got to get to? Well, let's preview next week because I don't really know what we're doing in terms of previewing after this. But we also know that the Big Ten is going to be involved in those 12-day television selections starting on. Okay, they're going to be involved in the 12-day TV selections starting Monday, is when those TV selections happen. It's kind of alarming for me that I haven't heard anything from the Big Ten. Big Ten has really been silent ever since they said they're coming back. They have not announced anything else, and I'm very, very concerned about the Big Ten right now. And like, where's this PR department? Is there no new information to tell me? Because I don't know who's running the Big Ten PR department, but it's like the season's creeping up on us, and we haven't heard anything. I've seen Fox ads saying that Big Ten's back, which of course is reassuring considering when I looked at Big10.org, it's still one of the top stories is that the Big Ten canceled their season in August. August 11th, I believe, was the day they officially announced it. So next week, certainly LSU, Florida, and Georgia, Bama are the games that most people are going to watch next week. There's really isn't much else. It's a hit or miss. You got Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina. I don't know, Clemson, Georgia Tech. Like, all this is just hit or miss, guys, that you're going to see next week. So I think that's going to do it for us. Next week should be a pretty chill week for college football outside of Georgia, Bama. And then, of course, following that week, we've got Big Ten football. And then it's really going. We got Big Ten football, I believe also Mountain West football. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll have MAC football and Pac-12 football, which of course is going to start with ASU, USC in the morning. So I guess that's going to do it for us, guys. College football tonight. Again, our winners, Missouri, Kentucky, Texas A&M, are our winners today. And certainly, you the fan, we've got to give you a shout out. This was a great day for football. Nothing awful, nothing bad, but just that overtime game. If you watch that Red River Showdown, it was no like 3-hour game. It was That was at least a 4.5 hour game. It went all the way up to like 4 Central, right? It started. Okay, maybe it was like 3:30 Central, 4 Eastern. Um, but it's definitely like it was exciting. It never got out of hand. It was always a close enough game that you're like, play here, play there. And it's the Big 12. I mean, you really don't know to expect week in, week out in the Big 12. I guess that's gonna do it for us. I really, really want to see the Big 10 come back.